YouTube, what's going on? Hey, so I am doing something really special for this video. If you guys have made it all the way here to video number 3, right? You get the official ear reveal. Yeah, I know. This is a glorious day. Hey, no, but seriously, I realized like in the making of these videos, I'm like playing back and listening to the audio and like also watching the footage, and I'm realizing I'm like, I don't have any other audio associated with this yet that I need to hear at any point during the recordings. So why am I wearing these again? So yeah, hey, headphones gone. Not for good. All right, they're still here to the left of me as I speak, but yeah, no, I just didn't really see a need to continue with the headphones. So here we are, ears out of jail. We love that for them, and we're here to talk today about what I would wager is probably, if you're a college football fan, that is, one of your top 3 least favorite things about the sport: polls. And in particular, we're talking about the week 3 AP poll. We're going to be covering all of the movement that took place there between week 2 and week 3, and just make it make sense, please. All right. Well, without further ado, we're going to get right into this. So, if you're not familiar with what last week's AP poll was, that's fine, because when I bring up the graphic here in just a second, it will show you movement that took place between the 2 weeks in there in the format of a red arrow pointing downward with a number associated with it in terms of how many spots they dropped, or a green arrow pointing up, same corresponding number, just opposite direction of travel, obviously. So here we go. Now, I want to discuss some things from top to bottom that I notice as I go down. We'll kind of do a quick acknowledgement of those things, and then we'll circle back and we'll start kind of covering the entirety of the list, because you can't really start discussing one rank without really discussing how it can be affected by other ranks as well, if that makes sense. So like I said, kind of just brief little just sniper shot on a couple of them that I'm like, maybe I want to say something about this at some point, and then we'll circle back and we'll just unleash the truth bomb about my opinion on these rankings. So first thing I noticed right off the bat is Texas overtaking Ohio State for the number 2 spot. That's interesting. And that's how I'm going to note the interesting topics that we're going to expand on later. So maybe in the future when we do this, it'd be something like kind of, I don't know, audio or something like, that's interesting. I don't know, something silly. Then I notice that if my math be correct, that looks like 6 SEC schools comprising the top 10, or not comprising, but rather being in the top 10. I want to say that that is a record, that no conference has ever had that much representation in the top 10 ever. I could be wrong. I could have misread it and kind of misconstrued it, but I guess that's interesting. Let's see here. USC, higher than ever. So if you notice, that is an increase in 2 spots, but from where they were the week prior to that, even, there's been a drastic change in trajectory of this program. Interesting. Oklahoma State goes up 3 spots. That's interesting. Kansas State also goes up 3 spots. That's interesting. LSU up 2 spots, sitting just behind undefeated Oklahoma, who didn't move at all. That's interesting. Michigan down 7 spots all the way to number 17. Interesting. Notre Dame down 13 spots from 5 to 18, despite Florida should be ranked number 1. We'll cover that, I guess, some other video perhaps, but you're missing kind of the bit, I guess. Anything that I see in the list that I think that's interesting, I'm going to say it's interesting, that I'm circling back and kind of expanding on how I feel about the entire poll. YouTube viewers don't have to worry about that. I'm going to clip it up later. But, okay, so we talked about Notre Dame dropping 13 spots all the way down to 18. That's pretty interesting to me. Let's see. As far as the unranked teams from last week coming into things, pause. Iowa State coming in at 21. That's not very interesting. Northern Illinois at 25. That's interesting. All right, so let's get into it, okay? I mentioned Texas overtaking Ohio State for the second ranked spot, but I kind of elaborated this in my week 2 like full reaction video and kind of the immediate reaction video as well. And basically what I said is, like, if you were hoping for this game against Michigan to be a test, like an actual like statement win for Texas that they're probably searching for to kind of, I guess, advocate for themselves as being like de facto national championship contenders. Now, that being said, like, Texas has looked remarkable over 2 weeks, but after what we saw from Michigan on Saturday, is anybody looking at that team the same way, like within the same frame of reference? So, coming into this year, defending national champions, everybody wants to assume like, okay, they're not going to be national champs back to back, but this could still be a pretty good football team. And it just doesn't look to be the case at all. So again, like, has Texas necessarily proved anything better than Ohio State to deserve being in the 2 spot? Like, I personally don't feel that way, because the quality of Michigan as a program has significantly regressed in my eyes, as well as many other people. So Ohio State, on the other hand, has just been absolutely eviscerating its past 2 opponents. No, they're not very thrilling to look at in terms of an overall team talent composite, but I expect them to assassinate those teams. They are doing so, and then Texas goes into Ann Arbor with high expectations, and I think a lot of Michigan fans as well, like, I guess just national media pundits in general, having similar high expectations for Michigan, and yet Texas was almost like unanimously picked to win the game, and then we weren't even to halftime before people started to realize why. It was like, oh, it's just like, these are not teams of the same caliber at all. So again, did Texas deserve to jump 1 spot? I don't think so. As far as the 6 SEC teams occupying the top 10, I do believe I read the article correctly. That has literally like never happened in the history of the AP poll, that many teams occupying the top 10 from the single conference. I kind of expected stuff like this to happen now with the most recent round of conference expansion. I know that there's probably a lot of people that want me to sit here and bag on it because, like, fuck the SEC and shit like that. But in reality, you look at the 2 conferences that comprise the most spots, right, overall, and that's pretty congruent with most recent round of conference expansion, the strength of those conferences as opposed to their counterparts. I mean, it's kind of a simple calculus at this point. So let's get into like things that I think I have like actual problems with. All right. I think the first thing that I mentioned after the number of SEC schools, yes, okay, so these 2 are literally right back to back. Oklahoma State and Kansas State each going up 3 spots to button up at 13 and 14. Why? Okay, for starters, Arkansas, and I said this in my week 2 reaction video, Arkansas lost that game against Oklahoma State. Okay, Oklahoma State did no beating. Now, yes, their quarterback was throwing the ball very well late in the game in order to bring them back and force the overtime, right? But that was literally just because Arkansas, I guess, forgot that there was 4 quarters of football to be played. I don't know, like the number of turnovers that just started occurring out of nowhere after they put up. And hang on, I'm going to switch to the main real quick while I go hunt this down, because I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Again, could be wrong, don't think I am. But I want to say that Arkansas tuned them up to the sound of just shy of 700 yards of total offense. I mean, if I had shown you the box score, or not the box score, but the overall team statistics, and then left out the final score, and you'd looked at this, you would have told me that Arkansas won this game 999 times out of 100 in a 100-game simulation, right? But they didn't. Oklahoma State comes back. But the thing is like, what about that is impressive when the reality is that using the term comeback is like very loosely defined, because you were essentially helped back into this game because your opponent decided to develop temporary amnesia with regard to how to play the game of football the same way they did in the previous 3 quarters. So, yeah, again, getting rewarded for that when I realized there was some downward movement from some other teams, but it's like, I can think of a couple other undefeated Power Four teams that can slide up into that spot because they haven't been performing as disappointing. And the narrative holds true here for Kansas State, moving up 3 spots. If you watch that game against Tulane, it's on the road, sure, right? It's their first road trip, but again, we're talking about the difference between a group of 5 team, granted, a group of 5 team that's been well regarded in recent years, but I think that's because people are associating Tulane with the Cotton Bowl victory over USC and Caleb Williams, not Caleb Williams, Jesus. They're associating Tulane with that team, not understanding that a lot of those players are gone and the head coach and staff are gone as well. Willie Fritz is now the head coach at the University of Houston. So Tulane, while one of the better group of 5 schools, going up against Kansas State, I think a lot of Vegas lines had the right idea on this game. But I also like to kind of fly in the face of that, because what you hear like national media people say is that, you know, it's all about the talent on your roster. It's how you recruit, it's how you develop and stuff like that. But like, okay, development and recruitment obviously walk hand in hand, because you can develop really well but recruit poorly. So now your ceiling, right? Like you see how it's not quite as high as if you recruit really well and you develop really well. You're still kind of sitting behind the curve, right? But what I'm getting at with this is that Kansas State, by all accounts, is supposed to be a far better program than Tulane. Okay? That is the whole purpose of this argument, is that Kansas State, yes, while on the road, yes, it's their first road trip of the year with a brand new starting quarterback. Tulane is not supposed to give you the business like that. It's just not supposed to happen, especially when you're regarded as one of the teams in the Big 12 most likely to win the conference, right? It's like it was supposed to be literally the 3 of you in a row right here, 12-14 in the rankings. Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, right there. You know, Arizona got some regard as well. I got some questions about them too, given their performance against their northern counterparts in the state of Arizona. But yeah, no, if anybody watched this game, Avery Johnson, he's not the guy yet. Okay, I understand the narrative in the offseason was that he ran Will Howard out of town and Ohio State's basically getting Kansas State's like sloppy seconds. Are we sure about that? Like, I think he has promise because of his intangibles and his just overall freakish physical nature, but like, are we sure he's just going to become a good passer? Because like, yeah, he's fast and he can run the ball, but what about anything that you saw from that offense in the first half of that game on Saturday told you, oh yeah, he's ready for the big time? He's not. I mean, but that's no disrespect to him. Like, he's a young kid. Like he's literally a true sophomore, if I'm not mistaken, unless he was able to preserve his red shirt last season. But this is a 18, 19-year-old kid right now, roughly. Expectation management, okay? But I guess not if you're an AP voter. You just rolled out of bed, you know, Sunday morning, and you were like, bibbity bobbity, Kansas State's 13th or 14th, sorry. Oklahoma at 15th, right behind them. No movement at all after barely escaping Houston. Now, I had glowing words to say about Houston head coach Willie Fritz with regard to his performance as the head coach at Tulane. He undertook a dumpster fire of a program when he took the job at Houston in the offseason, is essentially where this is going. And yes, the portal exists and you're able to kind of move and mix and match parts pretty quickly nowadays. But to the extent that Houston was supposed to be that closely contested with Oklahoma, no. Like, that's, if you are Brent Venables and the Oklahoma staff, that result on Saturday is unacceptable. Okay, I understand the offensive line is having health issues right now, but with the way that you recruit and the way that Houston is currently constructed right now, again, kind of the same argument with the Kansas State Tulane conversation. Like, yes, Houston is a Power 4 school now in the Big 12. It's also a very recent addition. It's not quite up to speed, or at least it's not supposed to be. Maybe it is in year 2, and I'm just full of it, right? But I see Oklahoma all over top 10 recruiting boards year in and year out. And I can understand you looking at those recruiting classes and being underwhelmed by certain aspects of it, okay? But the total body of work suggests that the overall talent of that team should be enough to not be playing in close games with Houston. This is the same argument that I have for Bama, even though people might see the final score and, hey, tell me you only looked at the final score and didn't actually see the game without telling me. A lot of those points didn't get scored until the fourth quarter, my son, my sweet summer child. No, like USF was handing it to Bama for the better part of 3 quarters. With Bama being able to land haymakers here and there, USF was grinding their bones to make their bread. And I don't know if maybe they went to Toontown and got Michael Jordan's special drink, you know, from the halftime of the basketball game. But they showed up in the fourth quarter and they buried those poor kids. But a lot of people that watched that game from start to finish were like, I get that you played them close last season, because I know that that's going to be an argument somebody comes up with. But last season, reports were coming out of camp that because they decided to bench Jalen Milroe, the team essentially turned against the coaching staff in protest until he came back as the starter. See, a lot of people don't remember that Jalen essentially was basically suspended for a game, even though I don't believe it was announced or anything like that. He just didn't suit up. And happy 9/11, guys. Jesus Christ. I'm going to have to edit that out. Why did I have to say it out loud? But no, like what I'm saying is that, okay, if that was the case last year, that's a pretty good explanation for that result on the field. This year, that's not supposed to be an excuse. Like, I don't understand what excuse you might have, but a lot of people are saying that freaking Brian Brown, I believe it's Brian Brown, he played a terrible game, and like, yeah, he did, but he also was missing throws to wide the fuck open receivers, okay? And if he maybe just has a better ball, then is Bama getting carved up to the tune of 28-14 late in the third quarter, and now this comeback, or not even a comeback, but this dominant victory that we see in the scoreboard ends up actually becoming a pretty nasty black eye to Kalen DeBoer in his first year at Bama. So I don't know. Like, same sentiment with that as with Oklahoma and so many other teams this weekend that this went down with. Going further down, why is Notre Dame ranked? Like, why? You dropped 13 spots from number 5. I know what everybody and their sister is going to say. They're going to say that, oh, they went on the road to Kyle Field and they beat Texas A&M in week 1. And they're just going to back away from that comment like it's supposed to be this earth-shattering revelation. All right, so what I was getting at is we're supposed to behave as if beating Texas A&M is this earth-shattering revelation or statement to make about like, yeah, Notre Dame's, they were a top 5 team for that. Again, kind of with the Alabama game of like, did you watch that one too? Like, no disrespect, because we're talking about a young man who's literally trying to better his life and, take hold of his future. But Texas A&M's quarterback, Connor Weigman, he was ass, okay? Like, the kid, they literally got footage of my guy puking while walking, standing straight up, walking, puking over himself mid-game. And if you guys watch the College Game Day interview between him and Riley Leonard, all you had to ascertain from that was like, wow, one of these kids is with it. And the other one, I don't know what the fuck he's got going on. And Riley Leonard's still not a good quarterback. like we took a not good quarterback having a good performance in week 1 and then took that to mean that Connor Weigman was supposed to be that impressive when he looked that much worse than Riley Leonard. No, I think maybe they're both just ass, okay? Like, Riley Leonard, I think, had the 3rd lowest completion percentage of any FBS quarterback last season, and Notre Dame saw him in the transfer portal, and they were like, he's a god, like, we're saved. Why is Notre Dame ranked? They haven't done anything to prove that they deserve an 18th ranking when there's plenty of other undefeated teams that, I don't know, haven't lost to a team that they were favored by fucking 24 points to. Again, I thought it was interesting. I kind of had an idea about, like, saying something about Iowa State being ranked when I don't really think that they deserve it, because kind of similar reason. Like, okay, they beat Iowa. Iowa's kind of shit. Notice Iowa's not ranked anymore. So based off of your performance of them in week 2, you've deduced that Iowa does not deserve to be ranked, but the team that beat them by 1 point is the 21st ranked team in the country. I have some concerns about AP poll voters and their sanity. And then jumping down to Northern Illinois, my last victim for the poll. Man, taken out of context, that one could probably grow some legs. But Northern Illinois being ranked is one of the silliest things ever, because I mean, to take nothing away from those kids that went into Notre Dame's territory and did what they did. Like, they deserve to feel great about that, right? But, like, maybe don't ask them if they feel like they're the 25th ranked team in the country, but ask any reasonable person that isn't a Huskies fan, or sorry, Boneyard Ball, I think, as they were calling it during the broadcast. Ask any sensible person if they think that Northern Illinois is a top 25 team, and they probably tell you no. Like, even if they're an AP voter and then you got to pull them behind closed doors, I would hazard a guess that they'd kind of be like, look, man, I wasn't paying attention to shit. I didn't even watch the game. I just saw that they beat the number 5 team in the country, so I punished the number 5 team, and I rewarded them. And I'd have no choice but to sit there and just be like, damn, man, I appreciate your honesty, because this is what we've all suspected for years. I mean, known, suspected, right? But to finally hear it out loud would really mean a lot to us fans who have had to deal with these clowns for as long as we have. I'm not even going to talk about the differences between the AP and the coaches poll. That would take far too long, and I already told my wife that I was just going to be recording this real quickly, and then I'm going to hop off here and chop it up, edit, post it on YouTube. Thank you to the trolls that were present. Or troll, sorry, singular, and then the other visitor. Been a hot minute since we talked, my dude. But I hope you're doing all right. Anywho, I will catch y'all in the next one, which will be my week 3 preview video. I'm thinking that I'm going to record that Thursday evening as the first games of the week are going, which, if my math is correct, memory, it's going to be Texas State versus Arizona State and Northwestern State versus South Alabama. So, preliminary thoughts. Texas State might be the best group of 5 team out there, and a dark horse candidate for a playoff slot. Arizona State looking very improved in year 2 under Kenny Dillingham. So should be a good game. I've got some daily fantasy picks on it already. Logged them while I was in the sauna this morning after working out. So, hey, let's see if we can have another repeat of last week. I made some good money, so maybe I need to start incorporating my fantasy stuff into the videos as well. Maybe get some preds and stuff like that. We'll see. I have